Alright everybody, welcome to another week of Game Wisdom Live for June 16, 2019. I'm about to be coughing in 1 second, as it is peak allergy season here. But, as always, we have a variety of topics relating to the game industry that I want to talk about, and we'll see if we get any comments in the chat. But first, as always, a quick update about what's going on with Game Wisdom. My mission to contact libraries throughout the country continues. I'm 3 states down, 47 to go, unfortunately. And with that comes a lot of work that's going on during the day. And a lot of my voice dying as well. But I've already gotten some interest. It's still, again, these are all cold calls and emails. So it's going to take some time to see if it will all prove to be worthwhile. I think it will be, because I'm noticing libraries are very interested in programs for teens. And that's pretty much what all my stuff is about. Coming up this week, I begin a few of my presentations for the summer season. So I need to get those prepared and make use of more with the new PowerPoint. But definitely excited to get back to things. And unfortunately, this does mean that my time during the day has been taken up in terms of doing all this stuff for the libraries. So I'm hoping to get back and doing a few more dissecting designs. And I still want to put together an actual video game lecture at some point. But it is, of course, Father's Day weekend. So I guess happy Father's Day to all the dads watching us right now. But the big news, of course, this week was that E3 came in and out this past week, with everybody flocking to the E3 convention for major game announcements, lots of controversies, and apparently Keanu Reeves showing up out of nowhere. I guess for me, I think for a lot of other people, the Nintendo show I think was probably my favorite in terms of the content that was put out. Oh, my voice. Sorry about that. Again, it is allergy season, especially during the summertime. But the big three, the big two, Sony didn't have a show this year, was, of course, from Microsoft and Nintendo. Microsoft, touting that they actually picked up Double Fine Studios, is now joining Microsoft after many years of being an indie, and also causing that whole argument as to what is considered an indie developer. But definitely, I guess, congratulations to Tim Schafer and the crew for hopefully having as their little video put out. They're now financially secured for the next few years. There are, of course, big reveals about the Microsoft Games Pass coming to the PC, as well as Square Enix talking about their own Games Pass, and basically everyone is trying to get on board with the streaming service or the streaming idea. And it is an interesting concept. I just don't know if what we're seeing is going to be enough for that, in terms of getting everyone to submit to their own, to 5 or 10 different subscription models, and of course paying the monthly service. I believe if we wanted to, we could have put that up there as well. Or we could have done it with the Games Pass, I think for $1 or something like that. The week before, there is more information about the Stadia, and how you're going to have to buy the subscription model, you can buy the hardware, but then you have to buy the individual games as well. And there's only discussions to be had about whether or not streaming is going to be the future when it comes to the game industry. And I don't know, I hope it doesn't. I still like owning copies of games, even if it's just owning digital copies. I'd rather just have the copy available whenever and however I want. Of course, granted we have an internet connection. In terms of the E3 shows, Ubisoft came out for some interesting games. I think Watch Dogs Legion kind of took over the discussion. The thing that's got very heavily touted is the tagline that you can literally recruit everybody into your organization. And a few friends of mine were kind of describing this almost like an open world XCOM, which that sounds amazing. The question, though, it remains whether or not they're able to pull it off. what I'm going to assume they're going to do is kind of create like a pool of like mission variables, and then just kind of, I guess, like propagate that around to all the individuals. So somebody who's a military person may pull from maybe one of 5 or 6 different possible quests. You do that, you recruit them. Because I cannot imagine them literally creating original quest content or missions for every single character in the game. But it does sound very interesting, and the other part that people are excited about is the fact that there doesn't seem to be a principal character or a principal and protagonist. And we've been seeing more games trying to do that lately, with either letting people choose like a gender of a specific character, or just letting you create your own character or not have the default character. And I think that's a very interesting, I think that's a wise move, especially when it comes to AAA development. Because the AAA developers do have the money and the backing to be able to go that extra mile. You can't necessarily expect an independent developer to create, tens of thousands of different character models, or create multiple predefined characters at that same level like we saw in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Of course, Just Dance went on the stage, and that's pretty much all I have to say on that. But I think the other big point, or one game that was missing, was of course Beyond Good and Evil 2. I was also really hoping for more Mario plus Rabbids, but it's sounding like that may just be a one-time occurrence, sadly. But who knows? Again, with Nintendo being Nintendo, anything is possible there. The PC game show was the one that I didn't really catch too much of, so unfortunately I can't talk too much on that. The Volvo had their show, which was definitely more, I guess, a comedy than game reveals. Although that Carrion game looks very interesting. I think it comes from a developer of one of the games that we did play. But I think my friend, or my pal Pedro is coming out very soon. And that one's been talked about for, I think, since the last E3 show. Now, let's see, is there anything else coming? Or I'm trying to see if that game is actually, I think it should be out this week. Here it is, My Friend Pedro. Oh, it's going to be coming out in 4 days. Hey, Janshvik. We'll see if that one actually does well. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, but it also looks like it's going to be very limiting as well. That, you've almost similar to what we did with Doom 2016. Let's see, other major reveals. Microsoft. Oh, the Square Enix show. For me, Square Enix didn't really do anything this year that got me too excited. Again, I am not a huge Final Fantasy fan, so the reveals about Final Fantasy XIV and the 7 remake kind of fell flat for me. But I know a few of you watching this are certainly fans of that. I think the biggest excitement from the Square Enix was the Dragon Quest Builders 2 reveal, because I really like that series, and hopefully we can play that one when it comes out. The really interesting thing was the reveal about more on the Final Fantasy VII remake, because it's not just a remaster anymore. It looks like they're going the Resident Evil 2 route and just completely rebuilding the game. Not only from a graphical standpoint, but changing the gameplay around. It looks more in line with something like either Final Fantasy XV or the Kingdom Hearts franchise, kind of focusing a little bit more on the action side, and then having the RPG elements, RGP, I wonder what that could stand for, RPG elements being kind of secondary or more on the tactical layer. And what's very interesting and scary about that prospect is that you do realize if Final Fantasy VII Remake does work, that opens up the doors to remaking every Final Fantasy game. And I think having uttered those words, somebody at Square Enix just got a sharp pain in their chest. Because it will never end. The Final Fantasy moniker will get even more memeing, because not only will we have the Final Fantasy of a new game, but then we'll see all the remakes as well. Although I'm sure a lot of people would pay good money for a modernized take on Final Fantasy VI. But I'm curious what people think about Final Fantasy VII going that route. There's even rumors, like the craziest thing is that there's discussions about whether or not you're going to get the whole Final Fantasy VII with a single purchase. Like they're possibly considering breaking the game up into multiple releases. So, like the first game will take place entirely in the city, which I do not remember that name at all. The second part will take place outside. Will be like the ultimate like troll of fans would be like when Sephiroth kills Aerith. Spoiler alert there. That just cuts it'll say to be continued in the next episode or something like that. But a lot of excitement around those games from Square Enix. Still, I was just no, that's from Nintendo. I was trying to think if there's any other big reveals Square Enix had. I'm so surprised about just the amount of excitement over Final Fantasy XIV. And there's a discussion about those kinds of multiplayer communities I want to have at some point, but maybe we'll say that for either a video or for an episode when everyone's not busy on Father's Day. But like I said a few minutes ago, I think Nintendo had the strongest show, despite not revealing anything major, I think with the only exception being Breath of the Wild 2. I'm kind of interested to see what they're doing with No More Heroes 3. They're probably going to be ignoring everything about No More Heroes 2, though, in that. But they also announced new Smash Brothers character with people losing their minds collectively online. Luigi's Mansion 3 is going to be coming out. And it just seemed like Nintendo kind of has that, I don't know, like a workmanship kind of style to them. Like they just put out a lot of good reveals, nothing too shocking, nothing too cringe-worthy, and kind of coasted by to be one of the best shows. Of course, they made fun of the whole Doug Bowser, and again, that still is just one of those like perfect moments, I think, of him taking over for Nintendo of America. But for everybody watching, I'm curious what you think in terms of some of the games you were most excited about. The one game from Microsoft that I was kind of interested in was that kind of a papercraft or sketchbook aesthetic RPG. Because I'm a sucker for games that go for like very weird art aesthetics in their game. Probably like the worst part, or one of like the worst reveals, was the whole Battletoads, which it looks like very low quality. Like some of the animations, like for like the character transitions, looked okay, but it had that very like a lot of people describe it as like that mobile or like flash animation look to it. And I just did not like the redesigns of the characters, which seems to be a running theme this year in terms of trying to make modern day equivalents of older game characters, as you all saw with the Sonic the Hedgehog reveal and that. Now, also from Square Enix, I almost forgot there was the big reveal of the Avengers game, which it didn't really do anything for me. The character models, like everyone's been describing having like that almost uncanny valley or low quality stunt double look to it. But I heard there was more gameplay footage or gameplay reveals at the show floor, which we didn't get to see. Another reveal that people have been describing as being shocking or polarizing was Call of Duty getting they're going back to Modern Warfare, but it's a reboot of that design. And a lot of people are arguing or complaining about it being too gritty or too disturbing. And that is always a very weird discussion to be had when it comes to the game industry. And it probably is a good lead-in to our topic later on, when I want to talk a little bit more about content filters, or filtering out content, what that could mean to making a game more accessible. But a lot of people, I think, I always have trouble with people saying, games shouldn't go far, or that they should stop at a specific point. because it just kind of feels like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. You want to say on one breath that games are expressive and meant to ask questions and, push people, but it can't push it too far or we're going to be offended and things like that. I always say let the game be made and then let the chips fall where they lie. Sometimes you get, very schlock-worthy or very low-quality titles. Other times you get games like Red Dead Redemption and other big-name examples. I'm trying to think of a few. Even stuff like The Last of Us, Far Cry 4 and 5, and so on. Now, speaking about Far Cry, I know, getting into this whole discussion about, there's this argument about whether games should or should not be political, and that would be something that I want to have a co-host on for, because I don't want to just let it be me ranting and raving for 30 minutes or so. Thankfully I was looking on Twitter and someone mentioned the EA conference, because I completely forgot about EA. But they revealed several new Star Wars-esque things. And I don't know, Star Wars, from that kind of design, it's very hard for me to get excited about licensed games like that. Especially after we've heard about the several games that were a can at Visceral Studios. Their Star Wars game sounded really interesting. And this looks like it's just going to be more of an action hack and slash. Which, speaking of, there's of course the very big and shocking reveal of the From Software game being worked on with George R.R. Martin of Game of Thrones fame. And of course we saw about, 40 seconds of footage that makes entirely no sense, whether it'll probably be in or outside of context. And probably when the game comes out, it'll make even less sense. But being a game from Software, I am pretty much required to play it on day one. Speaking about Souls-likes, I know the Surge 2 is due out very soon. It's either this month or next month, I think. Where is it? Oh, I'm sorry. I was completely wrong. It looks like it was pushed back to September 24th. So we'll have a few more months waiting on that. Still no word about a Neo 2 release date, though. But I know that there is a game coming out that we'll be able to play. Oh, here it is. The latest game from the Yakuza developers. The embargo lifts on Thursday this week. Nice. We'll be able to probably do a few streams of that, seeing what they can do kind of going forward, not being chained to Yakuza's design structure. And we'll check that one out for sure. Let's see, anything else from E3? Again, for people watching, I'm curious what big names or big reveals got you excited. For me, ultimately, I think the problem that I have for E3 is that, I get so much news about video games on a day-to-day basis that getting, shocking reveals doesn't really shock me that much anymore. The whole Cyberpunk reveal, I already knew about the game, so announcing Keanu Reeves doesn't really do anything more for me. Like I said, the only few things that kind of surprised me were stuff like No More Heroes, Dragon Quest Builders, and even then I'm like, okay. And that's always been this very weird thing about E3 and about these major shows. That back in the day, late 80s into the 90s and early 2000s, you didn't really have the amount of information out there on games. So when there was a big announcement, Nintendo revealing the GameCube or the Wii, that shocked everybody. These days, those major reveals are usually leaked several days or even several weeks beforehand. A lot of people, I think, already knew about, what was it? There's, I think, a Switch game that was already revealed before the show. And even the stuff that is so out of the blue that nobody could guess, that doesn't really mean much, because usually if it's that new, there's not going to be anything big to actually talk about. And hence the case of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. They did show more of. Uh-oh. What was the name of that Zelda game? Oh, there it is. Link's Awakening. It just popped into my head. That looks really damn good. And I would like, and it's always that very weird thing about the amount of games being remastered or remaking these days, that there's a lot of work that goes into them. And speaking of which, there was another reveal that 3 of the Secret of Mana games got remade for the Switch. I think it was Tales of Mana. I actually want to look that up really quickly here. Okay, Secret of Mana franchise. Okay, so it gets Secret of Mana, Final Fantasy Adventure. Why does that name sound familiar to me? And then Seiken Densetsu 3, which is the sequel that was never ported over here. And it's a very interesting case. I think there's both a game preservation and a design argument or discussion to be had about remaking these titles and basically remaking them in a way that there are essentially new games. Because that's the very interesting thing. Like, when we look at something like Resident Evil 2, that was not a remastered. That was a top-to-bottom remake of that design. But they could have certainly just have taken Resident Evil 2, given an HD graphic remake, sell it, or HD remaster, sell it and be done with it. But we're seeing more developers go for trying to modernize these designs. And even when they don't do that, there's still so much work done to get these games working. Whether it's from a backwards compatibility or just a compatibility standpoint, or what they're describing with the Final Fantasy VIII remaster. And basically just completely redoing those graphics. And again, a lot of people will argue that it doesn't seem like it's all that much of a big difference. But when you put like the two games side by side, it really does look like a completely different title, but still having that same gameplay. So I think I want to save this for a longer talk or for a video, but I want to ask everybody watching this right now, do you like the idea of games being remade, remastered, or neither? Because like when we see stuff like with Nintendo with Link's Awakening, that it sounds like such a crazy idea to take this game that came out, what are we, almost like over 25 years ago, give or take? But when they're doing it in such a way that it looks like a completely brand new game, completely original aesthetics, that it's kind of hard to like not want that game. And like we were talking about a few weeks ago with Resident Evil 2, a lot of people, including yours truly, were like wondering, oh, it's such a big deal. They were, mocking the fact that they're redoing Resident Evil 2 instead of just going to Resident Evil 8. But when you see the amount of work and polish that went into that, it does feel like a brand new game. So, did you like the idea of remaking Janšvik with like Resident Evil 2 and such? It's hard to make a new story. Well, we could ask Hollywood that very same question with the number of remakes being released these days. I mean, level design, I think that's a really good point, though. Again, like most classic games, you weren't really thinking in terms of long-term value with your level designs. I mean, that you can always make new stuff with. It's just a matter of the engine and kind of like the quality you want to go for. Oh, and there's, speaking of which, Super Mario Maker 2 looks amazing, and I'm sure that is going to sell like nobody's business. And my soda just went into my eye somehow. That was good. Yeah, but it does make me wonder if we're going to enter that cycle of just perpetually remaking older games. Well, we see. Speaking of which, I want a new Parasite Eve. I'm still annoyed that Square Enix didn't announce anything with that, along with The World Ends With You. But it's always that difficult when you're trying to come with something new and original. Again, a lot of developers like to play it safe. I mean, if you could remake a Zelda game or a Mario game, kind of like a good portion of that work is done for you already. The same goes for Resident Evil 2. Despite featuring like original elements and gameplay loops, they still pretty much had the story already sketched out. Yep, and that's the backwards compatibility point. But I think there is an argument, though, that when you're remastering or when you're remaking these games, it's not really the same game. You cannot nobody can argue that Resident Evil 2 that just came out is the same experience that we got back in, what was that, 98? 97 or 98, I think, was Resident Evil 2. And again, though, I don't want this to be viewed as being the replacement for backwards compatibility. That, oh, we'll just wait for every one of these old games to be remastered or remade and then we'll be good. Because something tells me we won't be seeing remakes of Jaws. Wait, there we go. There's our new idea, folks. We're going to remake Jaws and Friday the 13th for the modern era. Somebody get on that right now. You can do that in a day, right? With brand new graphics and gameplay. But I still think there needs to be a more official or centralized source for keeping these games preserved. And again, it also raises that question about buying them. I mean, should I be spending $60 on a game that that I should still have in my collection? Even if it is a remake with maybe a little shinier graphics. Now, or a remaster. This is going to drive a lot of people crazy. Arguing, is it a remake or a remaster? What is the proper definition? But other than that, I'm trying to remember if there's any other big things out of the show floor. I don't know, like the whole Call of Duty thing, again, like I want to save that for a discussion when it's just not me talking to everyone watching. Although I think it's a very quiet day. Everyone's either asleep or celebrating Father's Day. Or maybe they're all just tired after a week of announcements at E3. Yep. Oh yes. We've seen lots of those mods where they'll just remake the game, an older game using a new game's engine. Which is pretty crazy when you think about it. And it's kind of been another way to kind of play some of these older games. I know there are a lot of mods on the Sega Genesis collection on Steam, which may or may not be perfectly legal there. Let's see, some random games I was hearing about. Another Hollow Knight, the Silk Songs game is coming. I already mentioned Luigi's Mansion 3. The Battletoads game wasn't looking all that interesting. I guess here's my final question for everyone watching this about E3. Are you excited about Cyberpunk? Because I was talking about this last night, or I'm sorry, I was talking about this on Friday when I was playing Fallout 76, and I cannot think of any CRPG that I am interested in. Didn't like all the Elder Scrolls games, didn't like the Witcher series, and I'm pretty sure Cyberpunk is not going to work for me. Even though it does look like it's going to be more action heavy, at least from what they're describing it as. But, I don't know. Like, I think for me, I'm so entrenched with indie games that, like, the bigger name titles just don't really, like, register in my mind anymore. Like, everyone's talking about Gears of War. Oh, and Halo. That's how removed I am from the AAA space that even I completely forgot that they announced a new Halo game. Like, that kind of stuff just doesn't interest me. even like Nintendo stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna play it, but I'm not like jumping for joy or I'm jumping out of my seat to hear that news. Because there are always games for me to play. I will never run out of them. We even got, I think, 4 or 5 games submitted for the Indie Spotlight stream, which, if we check the calendar, we'll do that either this week or next week coming up. But it does raise that question again, like, are these shows still relevant anymore? And people can argue, I think, yes or no, depending upon where you are in the industry. But something tells me I still won't be invited on the, yep. Something tells me I still won't be getting my invite to the Video Game Awards show. I don't think Jeff Knightley is going to be getting in touch with me. Yeah. I mean, other than Nintendo, like, again, Nintendo was such the outlier that they really, like, as we all said, Nintendo really plays by their own rules. And I think that's why I still am excited about their games. I still need to play Luigi's Mansion 2, although I heard it wasn't as good as the first one. And there's a part of me that's really, really tempted to get the collector's edition of Link's Awakening, so I can add yet another Link to my haul of amiibos. I got normal Link, I got Toon Link. I don't think I got Wind Waker Link, though. But, you know, more Links the better, right? Although I will say, though, again, keeping that kind of Nintendo nostalgia, I did get a little happy to see Banjo-Kazooie in Smash Brothers. Although I still want a new game. And I'm going to double down on that and say I want a new Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Because that game is criminally underrated in my book, and I want to see more people play that one. But here's like that very weird thing. There have been rumors these last few months about Nintendo and Microsoft maybe getting buddy-buddy. Excuse me. And again, Rare is owned, or they are like majority owned by Microsoft at this point. So while I'm sure... Yeah, thank you, Neil. So while I'm sure it wasn't, you know, an arm and a leg they had to pull to just bang my leg there to get Banjo-Kazooie for Smash, I just wonder if we're going to be seeing more out of this whole idea of a Nintendo-Microsoft friendship. Again, this all goes back to my 100% insane dream that we see Nintendo games on the PC. Maybe this will somehow, you know, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon way get us to that idea of Microsoft porting Nintendo games to the PC. If that happens, that's when I will, you know, fall out of my chair shocked. You heard it here first, everyone, when that happens. But, like we've said, when it comes to Nintendo, like, they have always been the outlier. You can never really put them down or count them out when it comes to their designs. So it wouldn't be like surprising to see them try and work with another company. Because like we've said, like Nintendo, I think, in my book, either have to be number one or be your number two choice. Like that's, I think, where they fall best. Because you're not going to find their first or their exclusive titles on any other console. And then between Microsoft and Sony, it's just a matter of either console preference or just pure hardware power. Oh, I keep saying one last thing, or one more thing here, but they did start to reveal news about the place, or I'm sorry, about, what was it? The Microsoft, what was it? Not Microsoft Scarlet. There we go. That was revealed. And with a lot of techno-babble that I'm sure people are dissecting and putting up dozens and dozens of videos of how it will be the most powerful console. For me, I'm like, Again, I just got my PC updated, so a powerful console doesn't really mean much for me, at least for another probably 5 to 10 years. But I'm curious again about if we're going to be hitting that point when we don't need to see new console reveals. That the hardware has just reached that point where we don't really see those monumental jumps. The big thing out of the Microsoft Scarlet was their very much hatred of loading times, and they're going to put a solid state drive into it. So consoles are finally starting to catch up to PCs, which again I can't make too much fun of because it took me until this year to get my first solid state drive anyway. But I guess moving on, trying to think if there's anything else. Games we've been playing a lot of them. We're almost done with Evil Within 2. I'm still thinking about that Hunt Showdown game. Like, I can't get it out of my mind because there are parts of it that I really like, but I just don't know if it's going to last long enough to get to where I would want it to. Like, one thing that I want to mention about that game, and I think I need to bring this up in its own separate piece, is that I liked the slower feel of the gunplay. Like, I was talking about this last night to Thorn and Eric, that one of my dream concepts is that I want to see someone make the Dark Souls of first-person shooting. A more methodical first-person shooter that means anything. And Hunt Showdown's gameplay is kind of close to what I was envisioning. This idea that you're firing, you're attacking enemies, but it's not like run and gun. It's not high octane. It's very much you put a bullet in a guy, and it really matters. No more, bunny. What was it? It's called bunny hopping, right? Wow, that's a really good reveal that I forgot what that term means. But no more bunny hopping, no more crazy acrobatics. But this idea that you're fighting enemies and every bullet matters in the same vein as every swing of your sword does in Dark Souls. And it's one of those crazy ideas in my head, along with my dream horror idea, that I would love to do at some point. But there's still plenty more games to be had. I think we may be trying to do a Dark Souls 2 co-op later tonight. And I'm debating if I want to try and attempt a run of the Battletoads games at some point. Really give myself some misery on stream. But with that said, let's take a look and see what weird games are coming out this week. Give me 1 second here. Gotta make sure to get rid of all my little windows that are popped up. Alright, here we go. They're still bringing up Pathologic 2. I know there was a discussion about them adding in difficulty patches to it. Hell Let Loose. Ooh, jeez. Huh? It kind of looks like a Call of Duty, or well, more like Battlefield, I guess. I don't know. Like the same thing I was saying with that Hunt Showdown. That even like the very best example of that kind of design, would it get people to play it outside the other major names that are currently on the market? Let's see. Welcome to Paradise. Huh. Just like a relaxing simulator. What? What the heck is this? I don't know what this game is. Wait. It's a survival game, but it's also a dungeon crawler and a hunting game? Wait, is this just the demo? Okay. I don't know what to say about that one. Let's see. I was kind of looking at this last night. Nothing seemed too crazy. Oh, here's a game for everyone. Nothing. We could totally stream Nothing, right? I know what you're thinking. These screenshots are really selling the game. But who knows? It may be a very interesting take on like that kind of puzzle. Oh, Lovely Planet's getting a sequel. That's another tiny build game. I'm gonna guess this is a battle royale. No, no, another quote unquote heavy realistic military shooter. What? Hmm. Okay, they really want to be an esports game there. This is one that I'm excited about. I think I put in a press key for it. But this is the sequel to. Oh no. What was it? Oh man. Hmm. There was this RPG that came out from Sega a few years ago that was kind of Earthbound esque. I want to play that on stream too, and I can't remember its name. Maybe it's mentioned here as the sequel. No, it's not. Oh. But yeah, I want to play that game again. Vegetarian Alliance? What? Whoa. What? What? These sentences don't make sense. This is probably the adventure game you have ever played the longest knowledge? Okay. Wait, what? It is better to eat medicine to make up the body than to eat medicine? Well, you missed our E3 discussion, Draken. And now I'm kind of left scratching my head as to what it is I'm reading about some of these games coming out. Wait. When you play the game, don't forget to eat more vegetarian food, but be careful to eat it with braised pork? What? The graphics look okay. It kind of reminds me of like that Bonk's Adventure game. Oh, that reminds me of something about Kickstarter. All you can shoot. I am very scared to click on this. I'm going to click on this one. Alright. 1 second. I'm going to take the shot. Oh, okay. Wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. You can never be too careful. Player plays a fisher. Okay. I'm not sure how much that's going to be. Fish for kaiju. $1,000. Nice. What? Oh. Fast pace. That looks interesting. It's free to play, though. How is that going to work? Wonder what happens in Giant Bear Rampage. Why is it like a VR game to me? Ooh, 60 achievements. Okay. Developer seems dedicated. But where's Shark? I think he may have gone into pain there. Alright, anything else coming this week? Wait, there was Ultimate Bear Simulator, now there's Bear Hammer? I think we've looked at this game before. Hmm. Wait, so are we a bear in this, or are we a robot? I am about to sneeze, too. There's that Steel Division. I think Thorn was playing that. Sagwag? Oh. I'm going to put in a request for this just because I want to read that. That seems very interesting. I don't know if he's going to give it to me, though. Am I going to have to double check the image first before I put it up? Ooh, dodging fake news with Donald Trump. I'm sure that's going to be a Game of the Year winner right there. Claw staff. Ooh. Wait. I don't think this is the right definition. Single screen platform would mean that each level is just one, that you're only going to be on like one screen long. Alright, actually, maybe that is right. It's kind of hard to tell. Ooh, optional final bosses. Yeah, I'm gonna put in a request for that. I do like the swinging Bionic Commando style platformers, like that Flint Hook game. Bunny Reverse Eye? Oh no, Othello. I am horrible at Othello. Yes, let me click on Naked Story. I'm sure that won't get me flagged at all. The weirdness. Ridbone? What? I like that character model, though. I'll give him that. He looks so excited to be there. Well, I mean, it would not be. Oh, thank you, Mojo. Afro? I don't think I have enough hair to pull off an afro. As I was saying, even though Ritbone probably isn't the most exciting name, we did get really good stuff out of Kid Baby Star Child. Seems like a lot of developers are going to like this like animated, like cartoon aesthetic now. And bears. Don't forget bears. Hey, Eric. I kind of talked about the remakes and remasters that were going on, and just not really being all that excited about these games. What? Let's see. What the hell is this? Wait. The game is being released as the prologue to another game that they want you to buy that is still in development. What? This game. What? You need a graphics board, people. There we go, exactly, tracking. I don't know what this is. Hmm. Alright, one more page and then I want to look at a few Kickstarter games. Mine Your Manas? Hmm. Flaky Bakery? Hmm? What? Wait, how do you fight bosses by baking bread? Hmm. Getting some very weird ideas this week. We could do a little bit of it. I don't know if we'll spend the whole night playing it. Alright. Let's see what's going on. Alright, so Draken posted some links here. Shell Leviathan. Oh. What? So how does it work here? Alright, so you hook them and then you try to attack. Wait. Okay, so there's the ship right there. Yeah. It sounds like very basic gameplay. The concept art looks good, but I'm not seeing anything gameplay wise. Like, this would be something. Ugh. This would be something that I would really need to see a prototype or a proof of concept before I would consider giving them money. It's also very worrying that two of their early stretch goals are for ports. I just don't know if 7,000 is that enough for a developer kit? And then 8,000 for the Switch. They looks like they're estimating about 30,000 per boss. Ugh. I don't know. Like, something about that seems very odd to me. That it's going to cost $30,000 to make a new boss. And again, without having any real footage or ideas of what's going on, I just don't know. Again, they're describing things, but I need to see gameplay. Let's see. It's been going on for 15 days then? Maybe a little less than that? I don't see them hitting their goals. One second. I'm going to mute my audio. I just want to see if there's anything in the footage there. That does not look appealing to me. Yeah, like we're talking about with like Kickstarter design. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, Mojo. Like I don't see 30 grand for a boss. That just does not sound right. But like this is the idea that you need a prototype of. You need an actual proof of concept. I need to see an actually what it looks like. Because nothing that I'm seeing on this page or that video is showing me this is actual gameplay. You know what? I'm curious. As a point of comparison, yeah, he was only asking 30,000 for Cultist Simulator, or 30,000 pounds. And again, this had a far more clear Kickstarter. Alright. Let me do a check here on the other one, Draken Link. You can never be too careful, right? Eh. Yeah, it looks like very much anime style here. Yeah, it may get me into a little bit of trouble if I show that on stream, though. Let's see. There's one other game I wanted to show. This is one that I'm excited about. They're trying to bring back R-Type with the original creator. Wait, is it over? Wait, did it run out? I think it did. Huh. Oh, yeah, it did. So they succeeded, though. So they got just a little over double what they were asking for. I don't know a yen conversion. I'm still in trouble with the pound conversions. I don't know how much that is in dollars. Huh. 550 yen is $5. No, that can't be right. Yeah, I'm not even going to try and hazard a guess there. Huh. Oh, there it is. So they made over 900,000. Well, that's good for them. Let's see. I'm just going down to their stretch goals. Alright, ghost function, subtitles. Like, this seems like a little bit more believable to me in terms of their stretch goals. It's kind of hard to read. But having subtitles. Wait, is that right? Is that $50,000? No, that can't be right. It's hard to see what their goals are. You got the bonus levels. They incorporated that. Oh, we need an extra $1 million. Anyone want to throw him $1 million right now? Oh, he worked on Metal Slug too. Yeah, so I'm definitely excited about this one. Because it's been a while since we've seen a really good shmup. But let's see. I think with that, that's enough weird and exciting games. Oh, wait. There's still one other place we can look at. I know you guys love this. Oh, that's right. I almost forgot. Megan Fox, who we had on a cast earlier this year, she got her game funded, Skatebird. Where are they at in terms of funding? Huh. I hate to say it, but I'm kind of annoyed that this is a top to bottom instead of bottom to top, or up to down instead of down to up here, in terms of the stretch goals. Well, good for her. And again, despite the very weird premise and, again, kind of like the meme-worthy style, you can actually see gameplay footage here. You can actually see what you're doing in this game. If you want to see her dressing birds up. Ooh. That bird did a really nice trick there. Yeah, that first game you link Dragon, I don't have high hopes for it. Ooh, you make your own mixtapes. Not bad. And there's still that spiritual sequel to Skate that you guys were telling me about. Good for her and the rest of the team. We'll see how that one goes, though. Alright. What do we have over on Itch? I know you guys have been waiting for this. Midnight Cookie Run. Midnight Cookie Run again. Wait. Why is it two different names? Because two different people worked on it? So anything striking your fancy for the people watching? Worder Cat. Huh. Jigsaw. Oh, jeez. Ow. That thumbnail is hurting my eyes. Ooh, Drugs the Game. Again, I am very nervous to click on any of these titles doing this live. Was that her sisters? Wasn't like Blade something, or am I thinking of another game? Alright. Let me pop things back up here. Still doing really well for just talking to myself here. Let me take a sip here before I Get back to things. Oh, as soon as I turned off the footage, all the weird games on itch started to show up. There we go. Alright. I think I'm ready to get back to some discussions here. Oh, My Big Sister, that one. That one was pretty interesting. I had to look up in the end how to get the true ending, though. Alright. But there is one other topic that I want to talk about, at least briefly. And it has to do with this idea of content filters and whether or not they can actually help a lot of games in terms of accessibility. So, what I mean by a content filter is what we see in some games about, removing violence, blood, and things like that from a title. And there's two games that kind of gave me the example for this topic. The first one is I'm replaying Shadow Warrior 2 now that my computer can handle it. And Shadow Warrior 2 I felt was a very overlooked game, especially for its combination of role-playing elements and first-person shooting. Many people who reviewed that, I think Polygon gave a negative review, and they focused on the profanity and the bad language in that game. And of course the fact that the main character, his name is Lo Wang. And it reminded me of the game Bulletstorm as well. And Bulletstorm is a really great first-person shooter with some tremendous gunplay. But again, a lot of people just simply wrote off due to the profanity and kind of potty humor. I'm pretty sure the secondary reason for that game was an excuse to get Steve Bloom and Jennifer Hale to see how many curses they could fit into a single recording session. But very recently with Mortal Kombat 11, one of the things I thought was very interesting about that game was that they gave the option for kind of like stream-friendly violence or blood filters. And what they did, if you haven't watched people who stream or do videos on Mortal Kombat 11, is that when a brutality or fatality or any ality you can think of shows up, the screen will kind of change or tint to a different color. It could be blue, green, yellow, whatever, and remove or hide a lot of that gore. It looks more like my favorite is the black and white filter, then it looks something like Kill Bill. But the point was to allow people to stream the game or show it without YouTube cracking down on them. With that said, though, again, the whole discussion about censorship when it comes to Mortal Kombat 11 is such a very weird hill for a lot of people to die on. And I don't know if we want to get into that discussion here, but I just find it very funny that on one hand people are like, we can't objectify characters and women and all that, but here's us vivisecting somebody, 17 different ways. But even with the filter, so you can still see those fatalities, and it just makes me wonder about the use or if it would be better for games to have like those filters in place, like the parental controls. And I know right now, like for the live version of this, for you guys watching this right now, you're all probably laughing at that notion. And like I said, like for us watching this right now, I know that my audience definitely skews towards older people, especially the male demographic. So, violence, cursing, and all that, we don't really bat an eye at that anymore. But it does raise a point about a lot of games, of trying to make games more accessible. If you tone that stuff down, would it be doom and gloom for people wanting to play them? Because I know there are people out there who suffer from, sickness. They don't want to see extreme violence. Or want to play a game. I'm old, I'm 34. Oh man, looks like it's going to rain too. But there are people out there who want to play these games and don't want to deal with those extra ideas or that extra content that may upset them or be very polarizing. And if you just want to experience the gameplay loop, it does raise a point whether or not that kind of stuff would be helpful. Even something like, I think, Soldier of Fortune, that very ultra-violent first-person shooter, I think it did have modes or options to, to turn down the violence. I think it did. Now I don't remember. But we've seen games kind of play around with blood filters or violence filters or things like that. And again, I know a lot of people will say that that is just crap. Why should you spend extra funding or extra development time so that people don't get to see all the blood and the gore and stuff that would be known for that game? Yeah. But I think ultimately, I'm kind of grown into the side that I think that would be good. Because if it means more people playing titles like Bulletstorm, like Shadow Warrior 2, and so on, then what is the big deal? And like we said, the discussion about censorship, that is definitely a little too big, I think, for our video for this part now. But again, if you can make a game easier for everyone to experience without diluting the gameplay, I think ultimately that is a net win. Yep. Or just have that feature available as a slider or an option. A really great example is from Brutal Legend by Double Fine. When you start the game, there is literally a game basically just breaks the fourth wall for a second and says, would you like to hear swearing as they did in olden times? And you can choose to turn that on or off, and then violence for historical accuracy. And that was just a great moment. If you haven't seen that, you can watch the opening scene where they have Jack Black's character just getting ready to swear, and you have to say, do you want him to swear or not? And like I said, the stuff that we're talking about wouldn't be that hard to implement. Again, turning off blood and gore isn't, a 3-month project. Or, again, having a simple bleep for profanity as well. And I do think that would be kind of the best of both worlds. If people want to experience the uncensored edition, they can do that. But if somebody doesn't want to see that stuff, then they can turn it off, hide it, or whatever as they see fit. I also think that would be really great for people who have family and they're trying to play these games. So you don't have to worry about, your child walking around, all of a sudden your character just starts screaming profanity and you have to quickly mute the game. Or, again, lowering it down while there's kids or other people present, and then you can just raise it back up when they're gone. But I really like that idea of having the blood filter in Mortal Kombat 11. I just wish that they would do that as well for fatalities. That if somebody doesn't want to watch their character get their head chopped off and then the scorpion chain goes right through their eye, then they shouldn't have to watch that. And again, whenever we have these discussions, I know people are going to argue, what's the big deal? But again, when you have this kind of stuff, it is more or less superfluous to the gameplay. And I would like to see more games play around with that. Because again, I think this would kind of be this leads into a discussion about the idea behind character selection. That if you allow people to make the choices that they want to see in the game, it's going to be more fulfilling to them. Somebody is going to play every game as the straight white male default character. They're going to see all the blood and all that. About which part? About the showing the fatalities? But why wait for Dragon Game with the 5-second lag time there? Somebody who's going to play a game as straight white male, all the violence, gore, and all that set to max. Just as somebody may want to play as a female character or play as someone and tune that stuff down. Whether it's because they're not comfortable with it, or maybe they don't want their family to see it. Alright. Draken must be typing heavily here. I'll take a sip while I wait for the response. That's the problem with this 5-second lag when I do these streams. Like, I talk so fast that by the time somebody says something, I'm already like 2 or 3 topics ahead. Comment down so there's been more style. Yeah. I would agree that they have focus on that style, but I think that's the thing, and that's always been these kinds of discussions. That if you're going to do it, you should really go all in, or it just looks like you're trying to cater or check a box off. And I think that's, again, where that argument over the whole censorship and all that about the female models came from. Or even what they'll do with the Call of Duty. Again, the Call of Duty, like, quote-unquote realism thing, like, I do think they should have those filters in. Killer Instinct is still in the news, Draken? I haven't heard anything more about that. Is it at EVO? Let's see. EVO this year is... schedule coming soon. That didn't help me at all. I know it's here. I saw... okay, here it is. It's going to be Street Fighter, Tekken, Smash, Mortal Kombat, Soul Calibur, Under Night in Birth. I've never heard of that one. Blaze Blue, Samurai Showdown, and Dragon Ball Fighter Z. They got more games than that, right? Like, don't they have, like, smaller tournaments? But, back to the point at hand, like, again, like, something like Mortal Kombat, like, it wouldn't be turning it off, so that neither player would see it. It would just be for one player. So that, again, like, if you're playing it and you have family and friends nearby and you don't want them to see someone get ripped apart or something like that, that you can turn it off just for your purpose. I think that's only what, like, these kinds of sliders and this kind of content filters would be used for. That would be on a case-by-case combo pair. I've heard of that. Okay. But that would be for a case-by-case basis. So that if 2 people are playing the same game, I would see with all the violence and all the gratuitous stuff on, you would see the exact same stuff, or you would see the exact same gameplay, but yours would be toned down depending upon what your needs are. Like, to me, like, this seems as along the same lines of having stuff like removing, like, screen shake or screen haze. Like, for me, like, when I play Amnesia, like, that stuff really bothered me. When they got so dark, the screen got so, like, distorted, that started giving me a headache. This game looks familiar. The Under Night one. Developer French Bread. Can't be Fury, right? No, that's the Game Bakers. Now I'm getting hungry for some bread. But back to the topic, that it does seem like in today's market, again, with people trying to push accessibility, that this would be something for a lot of these games to look at. That if you can keep the core gameplay loop in check, but make your game more accommodating, it seems like a win-win. Especially if you still allow, again, for the uncensored content to play, because then a lot of the people, like a lot of the YouTube pundits, wouldn't have a leg to stand on. That people can still see the game and all the M-rated blood, sex, violence that they want, but somebody else can enjoy the game just the same without it. And it doesn't seem like it would be that hard of something to do. And for anyone watching this, like, who's developing a game like this, live or recorded, I'm curious about how much work would that be to have, like, just turn off the gore while having, like, that slider on and off. Let me see. Is there anything else? Trying to think if there's any other parts of this topic. Did the violence, did the profanity filters? I mean, I could segue into talking about the E3 lack of gameplay footage. And we could do that very quickly, and then we'll wrap this up in like the next, I think next 10 minutes we'll wrap it up in. But yeah, I guess to end this topic on that, like with people arguing on both sides of the fence about censoring games or wanting games to be toned down, I do think this would be kind of the happy medium. Like I think player personalization, I have to make sure my own terminology is right, is very important for these kinds of games because I think it does help to kind of sell these titles to a greater audience, and it also cuts down on the arguing of a lot of people on YouTube and all that. Hey, Mike. Like, I'm seeing people complain about IGN's coverage of Modern Warfare, with them saying that they don't want to play the game, or they don't like the violence, and blah, blah, blah. And I just think that just have it as a filter. And again, people will argue that that would just be, souling the artist's vision. But if you can make your game more accommodating, it should be a net positive for everyone, even those who want to see all the hardcore M-rated stuff. Now, of course, the cynic would be, trying to then sell that stuff outside of for additional money, which I think that would be going too far. Even though we've seen many indie developers have the nude patch or nude DLC available for some of their kind of games. But exactly. Yep. Oh, and we had a whole discussion about what is and what isn't indie developer. And again, I think that is a fair point, Drac, in that there are people who don't want to see super realistic or very real elements when it comes to these games. But then that argues that, that also goes back. Here's a question for you, Drac, and for everybody watching. What did you think of the infamous white phosphorus scene in Spec Ops: The Line? Because that was a very major point in that game. And it's one that a lot of people talked about. Because of the fact that you basically killed an entire settlement of innocent people with chemical warfare. And that, I think, is where a lot of people also argue about this kind of content filters. That if you remove that part of the game, you remove one of the most striking images from that title. But again, if the consumer doesn't want to see that, I mean, that was a very graphic point. Like, that is definitely high up there in terms of you don't want somebody who's not prepared to watch that footage. I would say to watch it on YouTube, but that definitely comes with a content warning. Like, if you could say, for instance, like, the second you push that button, that the screen just goes black, or just, show something else. Like, you could just show the character's face and not show any of the horrors. Would that rob you of that scene? Because you could say strong points for yes and no. A lot of people who, again, like I'm somebody who I believe that the game should be played as pure a vision from the developer as you can, would argue that, yes, you are taking away something by not showing that. But on the other hand, if the consumer says, I don't want to see that, I don't want to experience that, I know it's horrible enough, don't make me see that, then shouldn't it be up to them to say that? And I know what somebody's going to say right now. They're going to say, well, you paid the money, so, you should, you can't argue after you've given the money. But again, I think that's where this idea of filtering out the content or allowing more ways for the player to fine-tune that experience could ultimately help these games at least be a little bit more approachable. And again, it's not about saying we are removing this, whether it is sexualized imagery, hardcore violence, profanity. We're just giving players the choice to either opt in or out. Because again, another major part about this is from the cultural standpoint. We've heard, I should say, more often than not, the stories about how America is violence good, sex bad. Japan is sex good, violence bad. And if you can just... I don't know. Well, it was kind of like the antithesis of the whole pro-military shooter. A major part of Spec Ops was the fact that you were killing Americans in that game. Like, you weren't killing, your generic terrorists. You were killing American soldiers for a good... Oh, I'm sorry. I think you were just killing all Americans and then in Spec Ops Online. I don't think there were any terrorists. I know, as you said, like, you have, 10 libraries and how many pubs? But, like we're saying, when one of the issues that I love, and this actually is a really good point, goes back to the whole controversy regarding Rainbow Six Siege, when they were going to have the one vision of the game when it was going to be ported to Chinese markets, and they were going to tone down a lot of the graphical imagery. And you remember, a lot of people yelled at Ubisoft for it, and I would argue deservedly so. Because again, when you take away or remove the player's choice in terms of content, they're ultimately going to hate you for it. But if they would just have it as a slider, or again, have it as a filter, do you want to see this stuff? Yes, no, maybe, or yes, no, or some of it, and then just have the game show that stuff to the right audiences. I think that would make things a lot easier. Just one today so far. It's the haircut. The hair, all that hair was keeping me quiet and tired. Yep, I don't think so much difficulty settings, but as its own setting in the game. Again, look at something like Brutal Legend as a really good example. At the start, do you want swearing? Yes or no? Okay, you choose that. Do you want violence or blood and gore? Yes or no? Click that, and then you're done. And again, this kind of stuff wouldn't be that hard in the grand scheme of things to implement. It would certainly be a lot easier than putting in multiplayer. But, if you can make your game easier for people to experience without removing the gameplay loop, why not? For me, at this point, I've been desensitized to gore, profanity, and sex. That stuff, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me anymore. If I want to watch, somebody get their head ripped off in Mortal Kombat, or the Doom guy, chainsaw an imp in half, yet, it doesn't even register as a blip. But there are people out there who don't want to see somebody get their head ripped off. But they still want to experience a really good first-person shooter. Oh yeah, I heard about that. What the heck is that going? What is that about? Pokemon Sword and Shield. Pokemon fans. What? The hashtag. Wait, I'm not sure what the controversy here is. Not so. Will be available. Pokemon will be available. There's over 800. So they're saying that models are still being reused. I think this is kind of the... Okay. Thank you, Mojo, for that one about the imp. Some people are calling developers lazy. Of course that was going to happen. Yeah, I think that is kind of the issue that comes with any like long form series like this. That you just keep adding in more content, more features, it's going to become harder and harder to preserve that stuff, 8, 10, 15 games down the line. And yeah, what they should probably do is at some point just make... It's kind of like the same thing with Smash Brothers, getting all those characters to work in a single game. Like, chances are, I don't think they're going to make another Smash Brothers at that size in the future. I'm pretty sure Sakurai will probably, jump off something if Nintendo asks them, can you do all that again, but with 800 more characters? But yeah, it's tough when you're trying to support these games and you're trying to do new stuff as well. Because there's only so much time and money in the world. Now, if you can reuse stuff, and again, like that's what a lot of people are talking about with Breath of the Wild 2, and just use that as the basis, that's great. But let me see here. But like with this point, like this is the first time that a Pokemon game is going to be on the Switch, right? Like there are no previous Switch Pokemon, right? Because if that's the case, then it would be a lot more work porting those assets and getting that stuff to work from the 3DS versions to this. And even then, if they decide to use a new engine, that also means more work making all that stuff compatible. Mm. Mm. Yeah. And again, ultimately, like I would side with the developers on this. That if it's still going to be a complete game, but again, like I know what they're saying about in terms of the amount of content that they're trying to put out. Like this actually falls in line with a point that I'm arguing about with Anno 1800. That I like the foundation of the game, but it feels like there's cut content or it's lacking in terms of the content compared to Anno 2205, 2025, 2025 and 1404. Remember, all Anno games, their numbers add up to 9. That's how you know it's a real Anno game. But like, I was really missing the challenges and the achievement collections from 1404, and that's not in 1800. And again, we could argue that that is more work on the developers. And there's... What's our time anyway? Because I feel like we're going to get to like 3 hours if you guys get me started on this one. But there's a discussion to be had about what quantifies as a finished game. And especially when we have sequels. Because again, like going back to Anno and Pokemon, how many Pokemon games are we up to at this point? Like 10 or 15? And with each game, you always have to ask yourself, do you want to see stuff carry over from the old game? Or do you want new stuff added in? And like with Anno, there's a lot of content and stuff that they experiment with in the last 2 games that people were either excited to see or wanted to see them try and do something different with. In 2025, there is an entire persistence system with your vehicle or arc that you could customize it and then go into a mission or to a map with, and that would give you like unique advantages or bonuses, and they were all tied to in-game unlocks. 2205 had, of course, the different systems that were added in, the military minigame, and things like that. So when you go to the next game in the franchise, and that stuff is either missing or has been changed, are you, like, as a fan, are you happy or sad about that? Because again, like, asking the developers just to keep adding and adding and adding stuff on top will eventually lead to a game that's just unmanageable. Like, imagine if something like, oh, here's a good point. Imagine if Civilization had to support not only every new game system, but also all the experimentation and different gameplay that they added in previous ones. Because for each Civ game, especially I think starting from 4 on, they changed their underlying military and simulation or Civ model for them. So you couldn't expect them to support the next game and have everything added in. Going back to Mortal Kombat, they tried that with, what was it, Mortal Kombat Armageddon. And a lot of people complained that a lot of the characters were just like the same, just asset flips. Because when you're trying to support 83 different characters, it's very hard to make things unique and original. Just like I was assumed with over 800 Pokemon right now. I think that's about that. I'm trying to see if there's any other news about Pokemon. But some really good topics I want to try and turn into separate videos. I want to do maybe one about the content filter, and especially again about games being finished, or what's considered to be the finished version of a game. But we are approaching 2 hours of just me talking, and I think my voice is going to die any minute now. So I think we'll wrap things up here. But yeah, if you guys are free later, we'll do the Dark Souls 2 play for a little bit. I'll have to reinstall that one again. And we'll see about either wrapping up or getting further in Evil Within 2 either after that one or Monday night. But since this video is going up in its entirety, or at least the unlasted one, Josh, yeah, exactly. Well, thank you everybody for watching this, whether it's live or recorded. I still, if I can get the chance to, I do want to cut this up into the little pieces. But be sure to check out our Discord and Patreon link down below. We'll be back next week for our regular show around 3:30 EST, and normal game streaming around 9:30 EST. Every night. And I still need to get in touch with there's his name, Jeff Vogue, to get him on for a cast. I've been chasing him. I hope I can get him back on. I did hear that the Star Control lawsuit is settled, so I'm going to send Paul and Fred another email because I need to get them on for another chat. And of course, there's always Emmett McMillan. I need to bother him now that E3 is over. Get him back on for a Bumbo talk. But guys, have a great rest of the afternoon. Happy Father's Day to everybody watching. And we'll be back for more discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. We'll have to see when the game is closer. We'll have to try and get them on. But have a great afternoon, folks, and I'll see you all later tonight.